Hi, this is White African, and this is my response to Kaya's white people should join the ANC. Kaya, let me start by saying that I can kind of see where you're coming from when you say this. You know, we were born into a country, that you and me both, where the masses were oppressed through apartheid, and your people, the black community, now have overcome huge obstacles, I mean massive social inequalities. And so your generation now have the opportunities that your parents and your grandparents never had. And I get that. I mean, black people have a lot to be proud of for what they've achieved in this country over the last 14 years or even longer than that. Now, you get a guy like Reindeer, for instance, that says what he does in a very straightforward manner. And of course you're going to take offense, and of course you'll stand up for your people. That's only natural because you're such a proud people right now. Let me tell you something about Reindeer. The way I see things. Firstly, let me point out that I don't totally agree with the way that Reindeer comes across. However, Reindeer is a boer, just like me. And of course you won't allow boere to make allegations about your democratically elected government and your leaders that you're so very proud of. Reindeer is a perfect example of a young white South African currently living in this country. We're young, we're frustrated, we're angry, and also we're a little scared. The thing that frustrates us, there's a few things. One is that we as whites do not have a leader in this country, and we have no one in government that we can actually identify with as our leader. We feel that we're not fairly represented in this country, and our future here is under real threat. Helen Zille from Medea is the only real opposition to the ANC, but what can she really change? She can, just like me, point out the facts, but who can actually touch the ANC? As I've mentioned in one of my previous posts, our white leaders of the apartheid regime did not have the foresight to realize that apartheid wouldn't last. And so our generation of whites find ourselves in a situation where we have to pay the price. We're frustrated because we have no voice, we have no say. We see so many things in our everyday society which we disagree with, and we can't change it. You know, this also angers us because we see that our government as it's currently functioning is totally ineffective. It feels that we've moved from a developing country into a stagnating, or even worse, a regressing third world country. All our governmental departments are rife with corruption, just like our police force. Our standard of education is lowered, while our curriculums are being rewritten to suit a less educated person to pass at no more than 33.3%. But our pass rate is still so low. There are so many things, you know, we angered because we also have love for this country. And this is our home too. All these things threaten our very existence as whites in South Africa, and this scares us. Tell me something, Kaya, why do we experience so much hate directed at us for being white? Why does the media constantly remind the black masses of apartheid and show atrocities that occurred during those years? Why do we need to be reminded of those things? Isn't that just stirring hate? Why is there so much of talk of Uhuru? And that's one serious subject that our local media shies away from. Yet highly placed government officials are talking about it, and international media is covering it. Is our government not perhaps indoctrinating you, the black population, to hate the whites, thereby driving you to violent acts against the whites, especially the farmers? Did you know that farm murders is 700% higher than the rest of the world? Percentage-wise, genocide is already happening to the whites in South Africa. It's just a matter of time before these murders occur en masse in our cities, just like I've explained in a previous post on Uhuru. And why is it that our government is so thick as thieves with Zimbabwe? Is it because of the strong economic growth, or maybe the strong Zim dollar? I don't think so. Isn't it maybe because Zimbabwe has gotten rid of the whites? The fact is, Kaya, that we're unhappy because our world is busy imploding. The worst part is that some of us have come to accept this as a way of life. I cannot accept this, and this is not what I want to offer my children. Perhaps the main difference between us, black and white, is that we as whites grew up with a standard of living that is somewhat higher than what is currently set as the benchmark in South Africa. And now that the masses have been uplifted, it almost feels like we are being dragged down to that standard of living. Don't we have a right to protest without being labelled racist? Maybe it's just because of the big cultural divide we have in South Africa, which makes me wonder, is there really strength in diversity as read on our coat of arms? Shouldn't it really say animosity through diversity? And now you sit there with a smile on your face, proudly proclaiming that the only way to affect change in South Africa is if whites join the ANC. Kaya, that's as much of a viable solution as saying that blacks should have joined the NP back in the 80s and everything would have been great. Can you imagine P.W. Botha waving his finger going, stop complaining that you don't have any human rights and that you're oppressed. Just join us. How does that sound in here? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Your solution is about as viable as saying that all blacks should return to Africa and all whites should return to Europe and mankind can just live in peace. I mean, it's just not viable. The world looked upon South Africa as a country that uplifted itself from the doldrums and have united as one patriotic nation. Sadly, this is not the case. Whites are complaining and blacks are complaining. Whites blame the government and blacks still blame apartheid, and at the end of the day, we both suffer. You need to look at the facts. A 10-year review that was published in October last year noted that municipalities, which are supposed to drive development and expand the public works, did not have the capacity to fulfill their duties. With 25%, that's 1/4 of the government's annual procurement budget now being spent on consultants. That's right, consultants. They cannot do the job and they have to consult the experts. Need I remind you also that these government structures are themselves the product of massive political engineering. This reflects in so many sectors of our government, indicating that our leaders are totally out of their depth. Since the ANC has come into power, crime has risen, AIDS has flourished, a medical sector once among one of the top in the world of revolutionary operations like the heart transplant has now gotten to the point where people are dying due to unhygienic facilities through inexperienced, improperly trained staff and a lack of doctors. Khaya, I like you and I actually think you're a cool guy, but I'm sorry to say, you are a good example of what is actually happening to this country. You make statements that have no basis in fact. You say Zuma is a man for the people. What? The only thing I really agree with you is when you say that white people are terrified of Zuma. Of course people are terrified of Zuma. People should be terrified of Zuma. Did Zuma not rape a woman? Did Zuma not say that he took a shower to avoid AIDS? Is he not being investigated for the corrupt arms deal set to go to trial in August? Can you as an educated black man not connect those dots? Or are you maybe too proud to admit that your leaders, the ones who made promises to your people, are just not delivering? Or do you actually believe that garlic and beetroot is a viable solution? I don't think so, Khaya. I think you need to reinvestigate yourself and be real. Why would I join a party that has so many corrupt members in parliament? A party that cheered and clapped when it was announced that the Scorpions, the only real protector and the voice of the average citizen against this crippling corruption, were disbanded. Perhaps our government is so corrupt because they struggle to cross that divide between responsibility towards themselves versus responsibility towards the people. But somehow they embezzle millions of South African rands yearly. Actually, it's in excess of 15 billion over the last 10 years, if the stats are correct. They've proven over and over they cannot create jobs, despite creating a few black billionaires and a limited middle class. The gap between the rich black and the poor black is now the highest in the world. The ANC make their own people suffer. Why would I join a party that structures its policies in such a way that they make their own people suffer, but where I, the boer, am seen as the threat? In fact, it's the ANC that is the threat. Khaya, dude, you were not a part of the struggle. You were not arrested and beaten. You were not affected by apartheid like your parents and your grandparents were. You should be grateful, not arrogantly sneering. Apartheid has left serious scars within this country, so it's up to you, your generation, the black ones, the majority, to make the change. Let me also remind you that there were many whites instrumental in overthrowing the apartheid regime. Where were you during the '92 referendum where 68% of whites voted yes? So why are we not welcome in South Africa anymore? Did we not vote yes to also affect democratic change in South Africa? Khaya, please, these are deep-rooted issues that you are trying to address with your quick fix remedies like whites should join the ANC. Remember something, empty pots make the biggest noise. So please, go and research your facts properly before you make statements like this. Well, speaking of facts, I'll give you 2 for free right now. Fact number 1, the majority of Africa's leaders are easily corruptible, lining their own pockets with cash, while the infrastructure of the countries they run crumble and the population suffers. Fact number 2, the only way to effect changes in Africa is not by eradicating and exterminating the white minority. It is not for whites to join the ANC. Instead, your biggest challenge will be to evict these corrupt leaders of ours from parliament, or else you might face the worst atrocity South Africa has ever seen, even far worse than apartheid ever was. Oppression by your own black leaders.